Welcome to Unit 7, Level 2 video notes. We are going to exhibit knowledge of pattern identification. A recursive routine is the pattern rule to get any term from the term that came before it. So we start with a number and we need to figure out the pattern to get to the next one. For all of your questions on Mobius, we need to figure out what number we start with, and then are we adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing, by what number, and then using that pattern, what's the sixth term? When numbers get smaller, that means we're subtracting or we're dividing, or technically we could be multiplying by a number less than 1. If the number is getting larger, then we are either adding or multiplying by a number greater than 1. So for our first example, we're starting with 10. So I can write a 10 in here. And my rule is going to be add, subtract, multiply, divide. So why don't you pause the video right now and try to figure out the pattern, what's going on to get from 10 to 2. And then whatever you think, does that work from 2 to -6? Now that you've taken a moment, 2 thoughts come across my mind. To get from 10 to 2, maybe it's dividing by 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2, while 2 divided by 5 is not -6. So I'm getting smaller, dividing didn't work, so how about subtraction? The difference between 10 and 2 is 8. And I'm not adding 8 here, I'm subtracting 8. So what about 2 subtract 8? Well, 2 subtract 8 is -6. And -6 subtract 8 is -14. So I found my rule. My rule is that we're going to subtract by 8. Or I'm going to add by -8. Now to find the sixth term, 1 was the first term, 2 is the second, -6 is the third, -14 is the fourth, then we need the fifth, and finally the sixth number. So -14 subtract 8, or adding -8, is -22. And we need the sixth number, so we need to subtract 8 again, which gives us -30. So our answer for this blank would be -30. Why don't you try filling in the rest of them before I go over them? Now that you've done that, let's find the recursive rule for this second question. 0.25 to 1. That's interesting. Got bigger. So I'm assuming we're either adding or multiplying. And 25 cents plus 75 cents is 1, plus 75 cents is not 4. Well, how do we get from 1 to 4? That would be multiplying by 4. And 4 times 4 is 16. And a quarter times 4 is 1. So it looks like our rule is multiplying by 4, and we're starting with the decimal 0.25. Now that we have our rule, this is term 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 16 times 4 is 64. Well, I need to do that times 4. And that gives us 256. Next one, -4 to -13. Well, it's getting smaller, and I don't know anything times 4 that's 13. So it's probably a subtracting one. And -4, the difference between -4 and -13 would be -9. So my rule is start with -4. And my rule is going to be probably subtracting 9 or adding -9. Well, -3 subtract 9 is -22. -2 subtract 9 is -31. And we're going to need our sixth term again. So this is term 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So -31 subtract 9 is -40. And negative 40 subtract 9 is negative 49. So my rule is subtract 9 or add negative 9. It's the same thing. And the sixth term is negative 49. Save the best for last here. 80 to 16. Wow. Well, the difference of that would be 64. And 16 subtract 64 is definitely not 3.2. Let's see. Let's divide these and see if it might be division. 80 divided by 16 is 5. So that means 80 divided by 5 is 16. Let's do 16 divided by 5. Sure enough, there it is, 3.2. 3.2 divided by 5 is 0.64. And we need to find our sixth term, as it told us to. So 0.64 or 64 hundredths divided by 2 is 32 hundredths. And I'm going to divide by this. Save the best for last. We are getting smaller, so it's probably subtracting or dividing. If I do 80 subtract 16, I get 64. So that means 80 subtract 64 is 16. Well, if I subtract 64 here, I don't get 3.2. So let's try dividing. 80 divided by what is 16? Well, if I divide by 16, I get 5. That means 80 divided by 5 is 16. And 16 divided by 5 is 3.2. I think we found it. 3.2 divided by 5 is 64 hundredths or 0.64. All right, we have term 1, 2, 3, 4. We need our fifth term and finally our sixth term. So 0.64 divided by 5 is 128 thousandths. And that divided by 5 is 256 ten-thousandths. So there's our sixth term. Let's fill in the blanks. I start with the number 80. We found out that we divide by 5 and that our sixth term is 0.0256 or 256 ten-thousandths. This next example was a little trickier in your homework for patterns, so I thought we would do it in the notes. How many toothpicks are in the fifth picture? So we can do it like before, where this is figure 1, 2, 3, and we need to figure out the fourth and fifth finally. And I like to show that this strategy also works. Figure 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is the figure, and this is how many toothpicks it has. If we need to find the pattern, let's look at our diagram. So number 1 has 3 toothpicks. Figure 2, count them out, and we get 9. Figure 3, if you count them out, you get 18. And if I look for a pattern, this is +6, +9, so those don't match. Or 3 times 3 is 9, 9 times 2 is 18. So it kind of looks like there might be a pattern going on with either of them, but it's not the same number every time. Let's look at the bottom row. Figure 1 had 1 triangle, so that's 3 toothpicks. Figure 2 had the 1 plus another triangle, so that's 3 more from the previous one. And figure 3 had the 2 triangles from figure 2 plus another 3 toothpicks. So the first one had 3 toothpicks. The second one had 3 plus 3 more. And this one had 3, 6 to start out with, plus another triangle, plus 3. So it goes from 3, add 3 more. And there's your 6, where we're going to add 3 more. So instead of having 9 triangles, we're going to have another set, which is 3 more than that 9. And 9 plus 3 is 12. So we need to do 18 plus 12. And 18 plus 12 is 30. and that will be the bottom row. So then we'll take that previous answer of 12 triangles and then add another one, add 3 more. So from 30 to the next term, I'm going to add 15. And 30 plus 15 is 45. We could have drawn figure 4 with 4 more triangles on the bottom and added them up. And for figure 5, then another set of triangles and added those up. We still would have gotten 45 in the end, but it's nice to try to find a pattern. 6 plus 3 more was 9, plus 3 more was 12, plus 3 more was 13. We never had this multiplication because it looks like the pattern would be times 1, and that doesn't make sense. So good luck with your level 2 assignment.